You have entrepreneurs who are charging extraordinary rates, and particularly to vulnerable populations, which I know they don't congregate at Harvard Square, but they also don't hang out in New Haven either.
Senator, you haven't seen all of New Haven.
I haven't, but I've seen a lot of it, the parts that you might have missed. You have no interest in Fannie and Freddie?
I'm very interested in Fannie and Freddie, and I'm interested in fulfilling the mission to the American people to keep mortgage rates low.
What about following the laws?
So again, you should ask Director Pulte. I do not see I don't think this creates a.
Well, all right, you have nothing to do with Fannie and Freddie. You're also being the senior person here. Your behavior to some of my colleagues is absolutely childish. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, the President announced on January 9th, in his words, quote, effective January 20th, 2026, I, as President of the United States, am calling for a one-year cap on credit card interest rates of 10%. In remarks at the World Economic Forum in Davos, the President further said, quote, the profit margin for credit card companies now exceeds 50%. He also indicated that Americans are paying 28, 30% interest rates. You were one of his top economic advisors, Mr. Secretary. Do you support interest rate caps to improve affordability on credit?
I wholeheartedly support President Trump's policy, and I think that what you've just said would be in direct contrast to what Senator Warren said about this administration favoring the big banks. But those are facts.
Well, I don't think my statement indicates at all what Senator Warren said or meant. I wanted an answer. You gave me one. Yep. But let's look at the current situation. We already have legislation that protects service members by putting a 36% cap, not just on credit cards, but all credit relationships. And it protects them from being exploited. And as in my youth, I was a company commander and saw it firsthand. Would it make sense as a first step to provide a 36% interest rate for all Americans, not just service members?
36% doesn't seem like much protection to me, Senator.
Well, it's better than some of the things that are being presented to service members without the rates. These new plans to buy commodities, and sometimes the rates go to 500, and still today, you have entrepreneurs who are charging extraordinary rates, and particularly to vulnerable populations, which I know they don't congregate at Harvard Square, but they also don't hang out in New Haven either. So I think that would be a sound step, Mr. Secretary.
Senator, you haven't seen all of New Haven.
I haven't, but I've seen a lot of it, the parts that you might have missed. The situation at Fannie and Freddie is significant. We have significant federal interest financially in Fannie and Freddie. But under the director, Mr. Pulte, these taxpayer-owned assets are no longer in compliance with the law or with stock exchange listing standards. Pulte has appointed himself as director of both boards, even though the law says, quote, the director may not hold any office position or employment in Fannie or Freddie. A majority of the Fannie board has not been determined to be independent. The audit committee is no longer comprised entirely of independent members. And the governance has been sacked by political affiliates. These all are prohibited by law and regulation. So how will you bring them into compliance, Mr. Secretary?
That would be FHFA, not Treasury.
Excuse me. You are one of the largest, or the taxpayers are. You provided them, Treasury did, not you personally, a $200 million billion bailout in 2008. And you have no interest in Fannie and Freddie?
I'm very interested in Fannie and Freddie, and I'm interested in fulfilling the mission to the American people to keep mortgage rates low.
What about following the laws?
So again, you should ask Director Pulte. I do not see I don't think this creates a.
Well, all right, you have nothing to do with Fannie and Freddie. Director Pulte has said that you and him are, quote, very aligned, and we meet regularly about the conservatorship. By the way, it's in conservatorship because of Secretary Paulson, your predecessor. According to Fannie and Freddie's annual reports, the companies, quote, continue to rely on financial support from Treasury pursuant to our senior preferred stock purchase agreement, under which taxpayers own 1 million preferred shares on a warrant to purchase up to 80% of their shares. Treasury staff manages those shares and warrants for the taxpayers. Your predecessor, Hank Paulson, placed these companies into conservatorship. So you have the premise or the power to place Fannie and Freddie into conservatorship. I would think that that gives you a little bit of leverage talking to Mr. Pulte about why he's not following the law. You're reneging on responsibilities, Mr. Secretary. And you're also, being the senior person here, your behavior to some of my colleagues is absolutely childish. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Good to see him.
Senator Kennedy.
Hello, Mr. Secretary. I'm over here. How are you?
Good.
Mr. Secretary, as you're also head of the IRS, we've had some tough ice storms. Would you and your colleagues consider an extension on allowing extension to allow people to file taxes a little bit later?
Senator, I've been in touch with the governor of the great state of Louisiana, and he and I and my staff are working on that. It is traditional to grant extensions. They have 4 events like this.
Good. If Canada came to the United States, well, let me preface this by saying I understand that tariffs have a number of purposes, but the foremost reason for tariffs is to try to stop other countries from taking advantage of us through either their tariffs or trade barriers. If Canada, for example, came to the United States and said, we're going to zero tariffs in the United States. All of them are off on our end. Would you, Mr. President, speaking to our president, go to zero tariffs and then just let Canadian companies and American companies compete on a level playing field?
Absolutely not. As we saw last week, when 2 weeks ago, when Prime Minister Carney went to China, he lowered tariffs on Chinese EVs from 100% to 6%. U.S. has a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs. We couldn't let our northern border be used as a way for Chinese EVs to come into the U.S.
Right. Okay. I'm going to lead you a little bit because Senator Scott is a she-bear when it comes to time. The poverty rate, according to the Census Bureau, is 11%, isn't it, in America?
I'll take it. I'll take your word, Senator.
And that's the Census Bureau defines poverty, is it not?
Yes, sir.
Is it not true that the Census Bureau, in defining poverty and determining that our poverty rate is 11% or 36 million Americans, which makes us look bad, only will consider direct cash payments from the federal government to poor people, such as, let's say, SSI payments or TANF payments?
Correct.
Okay. And isn't it true that the Census Bureau, in determining poverty, doesn't include non-cash payments? It doesn't include Medicaid or food stamps or housing subsidies or refundable tax credits. Isn't that true?
That is correct, Senator.
Yeah. Let me give you an example. Mom, 2 kids, poverty level for her and her kids is $27,000. Mom works part-time. She makes $11,000. According to our Census Bureau, she's poor. She's below the poverty line. But she also receives, she works, I recall I said, makes $11,000 a year. She receives $4,100 in refundable earned income tax credits, $3,400 in refundable child tax credits, which means she gets a check, $9,200 in food stamps, $9,500 in housing subsidies, $900 in utility bill subsidies, $16,000 in Medicaid, $31,000 a year in free school lunches, and $6,000 in TANF payments. If you add that up, that's $64,100 a year, according to math.
I'll believe your arithmetic, Senator.
Okay. But using the Census Bureau's definition of poor, they don't include all these payments. They just include her income and the TANF payment. Does that make sense to you?
No, sir, and you should bring that up with the Commerce Department.
I know, but you've got influence. I know how close you and the Commerce Secretary are. I'm hoping you could bring it up with somebody above.
The president says we're opposites, and I'm tall.
I'm not going to comment on that. Would you talk to the president about this? If you include all cash and non-cash payments, the poverty rate in America is 1%.
That's a good point to end on.
Thank you,
I
Senator.
told you he was a she-bear.